Hello, my name is Rory Canterbury. I'll be your host today on Archery Talk 101. What you're going to learn today is how to get the most out of your practice time. So first, we're going to go over what does a good form look like and feel like. Next, we'll cover how to test your arrows to see if they're all going to group the same. Then we'll go over some practice techniques. So we're going to start off with what does a good form look and feel like? Now, when you're drawing back your bow, you want to be using your back muscles to draw, not your chest muscles. So you'll have your arms up and pull back. Use your back muscles to pull, as opposed to coming across your chest with your hand, which you're using your chest muscles to actually do the drawing. When you're doing this, you'd be squeezing your shoulder blades together. Imagine you're holding a pencil between your shoulder blades. You're going to be squeezing, and see if you can imagine holding that pencil without dropping it. What this is going to feel like as you're drawing back is you're drawing back, you're going to be pushing that elbow back is what and it's going to be looking like and feeling like when you're doing that. Now, when you're at full draw, you should be able to draw a straight line from the tip of the arrow all the way through your arm, clear back to your hand and clear back to your elbow. It should all be in a straight line. Now, the other line that you're going to need is you're going to need between your arm that is holding the hand, straight line through your arm to your shoulder and through the next shoulder. So you're full back, you have two straight lines, one from your hand through both your shoulders, and the other one is from your hand through your elbow. That's what it should look like. Not always to see it yourself, but that's what's nice if you have somebody looking at you, or you record it, and then you'll be able to see if you have that. And when this is done right, that's what it's going to feel like and look like for you. Now, how do you know what a good release feels like? That's the next thing. It's like, what does a good one feel like? A good release should be a total surprise. When the string is released, your holding arm should extend out to the target. So as you're shooting, it should be slightly bent so it extends out straight to the target. And then your backhand should come straight back. So it's going to come straight back, not off to the side, not down, not up, just back. Now, depending on how relaxed your arm is, sometimes the hand will actually come back as well. Now, if you do this with your eyes closed, you're going to be able to see what your body is doing and feel what is going on. Now, of course, you want to do this only if you have somebody there watching, for dangers, because your eyes are closed, you're shooting with your eyes closed, and you want to make sure that there's nobody that's going to get hurt around there. Now, the target only needs to be about a foot away, just so that you don't miss the target. And you can shoot close range. It doesn't hurt anything. If your bow is set up right, it's not going to be coming off at any weird angle. So that's another whole story on how to set up your bow. Another way that you can check this is while you're at full draw, have your finger above the trigger. And all you have to do is aim. And then someone else will actually pull the trigger for you. Now, I used to do this a lot, and every time I've done this, they've actually hit the target they're shooting at because they had one thing to do. They were just aiming. They weren't worrying about trying to pull the trigger. That's what's you're doing. In archery, you have basically your job is to draw the bow, which stores energy in it, and then aim. If you're thinking about pulling that trigger, you're not aiming. You can't do both at the same time. Now, let's go over how to see if your arrows are grouping the same. If you shoot a single spot and you have some off, you don't know which one it is because each time is different. So what you want to do is set your target up at 20 yards. If you have that available, if where you're shooting, you don't have that, you can shoot at closer range. And do your practicing at that range. You will increase the distance later after you've got it all set up and you've got practice at that range. Then you can start working on shooting a longer range. Now for this practice, you'll need a 5-spot target. They're normally blue um, with a white center 10 ring with the middle ring inside of it being your X ring. And then the outer rings are normally like a blue and then kind of like a gray background for it. So what you're going to do is you're going to shoot 5 arrows and then pull them. This way you'll get some rest in between each round. If you shoot a single spot, and you have small groups, you're going to start wrecking your arrows, and that can get expensive. Even the cheap arrows are costly to wreck. Now, let's go just a little bit about straightness of the arrow, because there's a lot of different straightnesses out there. And sometimes, you may or may not know what that's really telling you. On the box, they'll give tolerances for straightness. They can be numbers like 0.007, 006, 03, 001. That's a 7,000, 6,000, 3,000, 1,000 straightness. With 0.006 and 0.003 being the most common. Now, the higher number, the less straight they are, but also the cheaper they are. The 0.01 is called competition of pros or something like that because they're the straightest one out there. Now, what that number indicates is the straightness measured from end to end. Now, on your carbon arrows, you can't really measure it because anything you would measure that straightness would change it. So they're done with like a laser. I normally shoot the 001 arrows, and I can get them to group in the X ring of the target, which is about 1 inch diameter. The 10 ring is about 3 inches. I tried some arrows that were 006 or 007, and I forget which one they were now, but I can only get them to group within the 10 ring. That's how the straightness will affect your groups, the size of your groups. So if you want the tightest groups, you're going to have to get the straightest shafts. Now, for the beginners out there, save some money. Get the 3,000s or 6,000 straightness. You're not going to group to start off with that well, so you might as well start off with a little less expensive shaft, and then as your skills get better, then go into a little bit higher quality arrow. The real straight ones can get really pricey really quick. Now, let's just say you're shooting an 8-inch group with your 6,000 straightness arrows, and then going to a 1,000th arrow, you might now have a 7-inch group because you're not getting, it's a big group. You're not going to make that much difference. Like earlier example where it went with the 6,000ths and I was getting a 3-inch diameter, but the 1,000s I can get in a 1. So that's something you want to look at too when you get ready. If you're getting 7-inch groups at 20 yards, you need work on your form. Your form is not perfect yet. You need to keep practicing until you get a good form, which I described a little bit earlier, what a good form would feel like and looks like. Now, we're going to get in a little bit how to tell which one is the one that's shooting off. So what you want to do is number your arrows. Let's say you have a dozen arrows that numbered 1 through 12. Now you're shooting at a 5-spot target. You're going to shoot 5 at a time. So you're going to start shooting the top left and the top right, the middle, and the bottom left and bottom right, and shoot them in that order and shoot the arrows 1 through 5 in that order as well. So your top left would be 1, your bottom right would be number 5. And then after you do a couple ends of that, you're going to look at where they're hitting, where they group. Are they grouping in the same spot on the target? Now, if they're all grouping low and left, just outside of the 10 ring, we don't care where they're hitting exactly. What we're doing right now is looking at groups. What are your groups doing? So let's say you start, they start out in the middle, you are hitting in the middle. And as you go down the target, they're starting to get lower and lower each time to shoot. So by the time you get to the 5th arrow, they're shooting low. Now what you're gonna do is start shooting in the reverse order. Shoot number 5 arrow first at the bottom right, and then shoot number 4 bottom left, going up to the last one you shoot is the number 1 arrow. That's going to determine whether it's you or it's the arrows that are off. After you shot 5 arrows, sometimes you could be getting a little bit tired and you're starting to drop your arm or something. Or if you shoot them reverse order, you're going to now see that they're on the lower ones and start dropping as you go up the target. So that'll determine whether it's you or the arrow. Another situation where you want to look at them is this shoot them at the same spot. So number one arrow is always shot at the upper left one. And you have, say you have one of the groups that's grouping off from the other ones. So you can obviously see that they're all grouping right in the center, and all of a sudden you get one target where all your arrows are off low or right or something different. Now what you want to do is pull that arrow out and mark it somehow that it's different than the rest of them, and take a look at it. There could be a problem with the arrow. Maybe they're fletched different, the nock alignment's different, or something is causing that arrow to fly differently. And it's not unusual. Out of a dozen arrows, you'll get one arrow that just doesn't fly like the rest of them. It just happens. Not a lot if you're getting the higher straightness ones, like the 1000th ones, but you still can get that with those. So you want to check those. Now let's say you pull one of the arrows out, and now you're going to replace the number 6 arrow with the one that was missing. So you may be shooting, say it was number 3 arrows. You're going to shoot 1, then 2, then 6, and then 4 and 5, which are one you replace it with. Now, if all the arrows are grouped together, just pull those 5 out, and those are good, and grab the next 5 and start testing those. And keep doing this until you know for sure that all your arrows are grouping in the same spot. And like I said earlier, don't worry about where they're hitting, and we'll adjust the sights later. When you're doing this testing, you want to see if they're grouping the same is what you want to do. Don't worry about adjusting the sights, like I just said. Do that later. As long as they're close to the spot when you're shooting, leave them where they're at. Right now, you're looking for arrow groupings, not where they're actually hitting. It doesn't matter where they're hitting. And then we'll fine tune the groups when you get ready to adjust the sights. So now they're hitting at center of the target. Now let's go over a couple little practice techniques. Once you determine that all your arrows will group the same, is now time to fine tune your sights. A little bit about how to adjust your sights before we go on. It's always nice to know what to do on that. So what you want to do is follow the arrow. If your arrow is low, then move your sight or your pin down. If it's shooting to the right, you want to move your sight to the right. Small adjustments go a long way, so make a small adjustment. You are shooting at a little bit of a distance. Once you have all your arrows grouping and your sight adjusted, it's now time for the practice. So this is where you're starting to practice to get everything going. Now you're at the range, practice what to focus on each shot. You want to focus on what you're doing. When you go to the line before you start, just take and picture that arrow hitting dead center in your target. You want to focus on that. Don't focus on anything else. You can't think about the last shot because you can't change it. Don't think about the next shot because it's in the future, it's not happening. You want to concentrate only on the one you're shooting now. Nothing else matters. Don't worry about anything else. Don't worry about your score. Don't even think about what you need to score, because now then if you're thinking, okay, I need an 8 to score, guess what? You're going to hit an 8. You're not going to hit that 10. So just always focus on every time you want to hit that 10. Now, you shot your round of 5 arrows. Now you're going to go out and pull them. But before you pull your arrows, look at how they are grouping on the target. Keep doing this until either your time to practice is up or you notice your groups are getting larger. So if all of a sudden your groups are starting to get bigger, then, and all of them are, then you're probably getting tired and it's time to quit. You're going to start throwing, mistakes. You're going to get tired. Your form's going to change. Now, if it's just one arrow that you throw out one time and you say, oh, that was a bad release when I released it, you know what you did wrong. Don't worry about that one arrow. It's when the whole group gets larger. That's when you want to think about, quitting your practice and doing it another time. So now likewise, if you start shooting and your mind isn't into it, it's time to call the practice and pick it up a later time. It could be later that day, it could be next day, or whatever your practice schedule is. So I've done that. We've gone down to the range and wanted to shoot, and I shot a round of 5 arrows. Wasn't feeling too hot. I shot another one, and just for some reason my mind wasn't into it, and I was looking forward to going out and shooting. So rather than trying to get into bad, shooting and getting a bad habit, I just said, okay, I'll just do it another day. Now, if you go through this process and you're practicing the correct form and making the most out of your practice, you'll be getting better the more you practice the good form shooting techniques. If you continue practicing bad habits, you'll ingrain those bad habits into your shooting, making it harder to break later when you want to take archery to the next level. So you can watch other training videos and get archery tips and advice on the Archery Talk 101 Facebook group. I'll leave a link in the description below so you can go join that and get any advice that you might need. They're real helpful. So once again, this is Roy Canterbury, and I've been your host today on Archery Talk 101.